this is Ciarra, and today on Natural Selection News, we're going to talk about natural selection. We're getting back to the basics here, and one way to do this is to talk to the great creator of the theory of natural selection, Charles Darwin. Sadly, he's now dead. But thanks to recent funding, we've now been able to have a time machine. So we're going back to 1831 when he started making the theory to find out about it and how he came up with it and the components of it. Now, you may have heard of natural selection or have an idea what it is. But before we're going to talk to Charles, we're going to go to our head scientist, Emily.
Emily is currently at a remote research facility, and so she'll be only able to communicate with us through webcam. Emily, you're live.
Thank you, Ciarra. Natural selection is the gradual process by which biological traits become either more or less common in a population as a function of the effect of inherited traits on the differential reproductive success of organisms interacting with their environment. It is a key mechanism of evolution. It was created by Charles Darwin in the late 1830s.
Thank you, Emily, and now on to Caleb with our gossip news.
Hi, today I have gossip news which is here to talk about inbreeding. Inbreeding is breeding of related people or animals over a long period of time. By doing this, there could be a negative effect on...
Some effects of inbreeding are metabolic disorders, structural abnormalities, and inherited disease conditions caused by harmful recessive genes. Performance in several characters, particularly those concerned with reproduction and survival, decline following the mating of close relatives. This is known as inbreeding depression. This is why many of Charles Darwin's children were very ill and did not live for long.
This is what happened to many of Charles Darwin's children because he decided to have kids with his cousin. For example, his first child, Anne Elizabeth, died of tuberculosis at age 10, and his second daughter, Mary Eleanor, only lived 23 days. Many of his other children were a little bit more lucky to live a longer life, but they still showed signs of what could happen when you inbreed. That's all for today, and this is Gossip News.
Ciarra Burke again. We switch to the vlogging camera so you can see what it's like to enter our new time machine. See you in the past.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Darwin.
Who are you strangers? Why are you interrupting me while I'm working on the origin of species?
My apologies. I was just wondering how you came up with your theory of natural selection.
My theory of natural selection? I'd be glad to tell you on how I came up with it. Quite recently, I went on board the HMS Beagle and studied the Galapagos Island finches. I came across 14 species of finches while there. All my life I've studied animals, and my theory of natural selection is quite new to me.
That's fascinating. Would you mind telling us about the different types of natural selection?
Why, of course. The different types of natural selection are disruptive selection, directional selection, artificial selection, and stabilizing selection. There are 4 different types if you don't know how to count. Now, directional selection is when the extreme at one end is favored over the other, making the other less common. Disruptive selection is when the 2 extremes at opposite ends are favored, making the middle less common. Stabilizing selection, unlike disruptive selection, is the middle extremes being favored. Well, not exactly extreme, the middle option is favored, over the 2 at the opposite ends. And lastly, artificial selection has been done for over hundreds of years already. Agriculturalists and farmers have been farming certain plants over others. Artificial selection is done by man, deciding which organism will survive over another. Struggle for existence.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it's all about the struggle for existence. Each year, populations have more offspring than can survive. Survival of the fittest is crucial. This leads to lack of resources, war, and famine. Struggle for existence.
Okay. On that happy note,
Thank you for your time, Mr. Darwin, and good luck.
Understand struggle for existence.
Wasn't that interesting? If you didn't understand what Charles said, we're going to go straight back to Emily in the scientist's corner so she can explain it all to us.
Okay, well, Ciarra, if you didn't understand that, what Charles Darwin was basically saying is that, well, there are basically 4 principles of natural selection. There is the variation of phenotypes and genotypes, inheritance, high rate of population growth, and differential survival and reproduction. Species exhibit variations in phenotypes, and a phenotype is basically like a phenotype of an organism depends on which genes are dominant on the interaction between genes and the environment, which involves body size, metabolism, hair color, skin color, etc., or genotypes, which is the change of genetic makeup. Inheritance is traits that are passed down from parent to child repeatedly. These traits are called heritable, which basically means transmitted or possibly transmitted from child to offspring. Then, the one that Charles, he enlightened us about was how in most populations, the population numbers of people outnumber the amount of resources and supplies. Lastly, there's differential survival and reproduction, which is when individuals have traits that are suited for the struggle of local resources that will help contribute more children to the next generation. So, yeah.
Now, here's an example of natural selection shown to us through animation. Enjoy.
Slow, but simple. If a single plant produces 100 seeds, most will grow to be nearly identical to the parent plant. A few, however, will be slightly different. Some variations will be undesirable, smaller size, bitter taste, vulnerability to disease, and so on. Other variations will be highly valued. Thicker, sweeter leaves, for example. If a farmer only allows the best plants to reproduce and create seeds for the next crop, small positive changes will add up over multiple generations, eventually producing a dramatically superior vegetable.
Now, I know what you're all thinking. Why is this relevant or important? Well, I'll pass you on to my colleagues Caleb and Emily to explain.
Well, Ciarra, it is relevant today because the evolutionary process Darwin invented almost 150 years ago is still quietly at work in humans today. Findings suggest that about 9% of the human genes examined are undergoing rapid evolution. A separate study indicated the brain is still evolving as well. I'll now pass you on to my colleague Caleb to tell us how it has advanced from when it was first thought of.
The question was asked, how has natural selection advanced since it was first thought of? Well, a researcher biologist from Cornell University stated that natural selection plays a huge part in the patterning of human genomes, and it also is still being worked on today in the human brain to help humans survive in the world today. Thank you very much.
See you next time on Natural Selection News. I'm Ciarra Burke signing off. Good night and goodbye.
English, please. Well, if you didn't understand that, what it basically means is that if you didn't what? I just repeated myself twice. Okay. So, if you didn't understand that, it basically means that organisms with favorable traits reproduce and therefore they pass by reproduction their better traits that allow the next generation. Why do I keep saying that?
Did you do something with your hair?
Generation to adapt more favorably to their environment.
Nailed it.
So yeah, generations. It's not a word.
She'll get science for.